What's up, YouTube? So today I have a video that I would like to refer to as Takesie Backsies. And there's a lot of PMs that you're more than welcome to pause the video and read through it word for word. What I'm going to do is try to paraphrase a lot of it just to drive home all the points because I don't want this video to go very long. And before we get started, I want to make a couple points. First is RDSRedemption has already admitted that he is in the wrong. So this is not to put him on blast. Don't send him hate mail or anything like that. My goal from this video is to hopefully use this as a positive stepping stone to better the trading community here on YouTube. I've already spoke with a bunch of the larger YouTubers about this situation. They pretty much all agree with me, and we're already in the works of coming up with a pretty neat video to hopefully have a standardized and widely accepted trading etiquette, so that way YouTube users know what to expect from others and what to expect when wanting to conduct a trade here on YouTube. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just get into this. So RDSRedemption on March 18th approached me with an offer, my FTV Kiki for his Celestial Colonnade plus an extra card to equal value. I reply back to him, is your trade binder updated or accurate from February, this being March, because that was his most recent one. Very interested in the Colonnade, not so much the other cards. So he sends me a reply. He says that his Feb binder is pretty accurate. He watched my trade binder again, didn't find any cards that he was really interested in. So he says he'd like to still do Colonnade plus card worth $5 or less for Kiki. And so I reply back to him, alright, I watched his binder and I settled on Helix. Alright, Colonnade and your Helix using Star City Games, that came to 24. For my FTV Kiki worth 25. Then I disclosed to him that there's a very small scuff in the foil at the top of my Kiki. The card is still graded according to SCG as near mint, and I have the actual past order on Channel Fireball's website from where I purchased the card that I bought it as near mint. So I say, if you're cool with this, PM me and we'll exchange information. So he replies back to me some conditions with his card to disclose to me. Helix is in pretty great condition, couple of small nicks, no problem. As for the Colonnade, there's 2 small nicks on top, hardly noticeable. The back is SP. He could make a video if I so desired. So I reply back to him, I don't need a video. I'm still happy with an SP Colonnade. It knocked the value down by $1, so to make the trade even, I saw an Avalanche Rider worth $2, and it's kind of a neat cube card. So I propose, okay, Colonnade Helix Riders, $25 for my Kiki, $25. Blacked out is my address. If you're fine with this, send me your info. And he replies back to me that he doesn't care about the Colonnade or the Helix, but he doesn't want to break up the set of riders. So now he proposes a new offer that involves cash. He says he can take out the Helix and send more cash if I'd rather get $6. So if you're fine with either of these, please let me know. 1 Colonnade, 1 Helix, or 4 cash and 2 cash for the Kiki. And then blacked out is his info that he has now exchanged with me. So I reply, I didn't realize it was a play set that you were wanting to hang on to. That's fine. Let's just do a Colonnade and 6 cash. I'd much rather actually have the cash to begin with, but I didn't think that was an option on the table until he presented it. So if you're good with this, which is an even value in trade, then let me know that you shipped out and when I can expect the cards arriving. And he replies back to me, of course, I'll try to send out on Sunday at the latest, and I'll send you a message with the tracking number. Thanks for the trade. Seems like a happy customer, everything's good to go. That's on the 20th. I don't reply back. 5 days go by, and he sends me a new message, says, okay, I've been running late. and I'll be packaging them up, sending them out tomorrow, give you the tracking number tomorrow. So it'll be a 6-day turnaround from when we agreed upon to when he would ship. And you know what? I'm pretty flexible. I replied back to him, okay, thanks for the heads up. No big deal. I can understand people getting busy. Well, the next day, instead of sending out, he then replies back to me saying that although he doesn't need the colonnade, he doesn't really need the Kiki Jiki. And he thought about it all night, was not comfortable making the trade. So he wants to cancel, and he's sorry if this caused an inconvenience, and that hopefully we can trade again someday. Obviously, I have a problem with this. You can see by my lengthy reply. I say that this is very disappointing. This is now the second user that's pulled this childish Takesie Backsie's move on me. There's a few things that I want to point out. First, him referencing, he referenced Star City Games being an alien pricing site to use. Here on YouTube, it's pretty much, it's a fact SCG is the largest retailer for Magic the Gathering, and it's the most widely used website for retail pricing. A lot of retailers basically mimic what Star City does, and whether their prices fluctuate up or down, and then they copy it. So I don't really see how, if we're all using the same website, why that should be any different. The second thing I state is basically that I have a 3-day shipping policy, and that he took 6 days to get back to me, and now he's not shipping. So I feel like my kindness and patience have been taken advantage of. Third, this is really the most important part that I want to drive home. I don't have a stated return policy because once a trade is agreed upon, it is expected to fully transpire. Almost like if we were in person at a local store, cards would exchange hands. You wouldn't come back to me in person a week later after the card you traded me spiked and then demand the trade be reversed because you lost out on value. Likewise, you wouldn't expect me to do the same to you, meaning you ship your cards, I receive them, and then I sit on them for 6 days to see if there's any movement in the trade. And if my end is the one that spikes and becomes more valuable, then I just return your cards and say I don't feel comfortable trading. That's not how trading works. So I start looking on SCG. There was no price fluctuation from the day we agreed upon the trade to 6 days later on either Kiki Jiki or the Colonnade. However, Channel Fireball now had the Colonnade priced at $28 instead of $20 on Star City. I didn't check what Channel Fireball had back when we first agreed upon the trade, whether that was a price spike, whether that was normalized a week ago. But now I'm starting to get suspicious that he's trying to play the trader market, like I just talked about. Where he would hang on to his end. If Kiki Jiki spiked in the next week, he would make the trade. And if Colonnade was the one to spike, then he would cancel after these 6 days. So I tell him this kind of tactic is unacceptable, and I sure hope this is not what you're intending. I find it odd that he seemed rather content approaching me to make this trade, which would mean that he obviously had a need or want for my card, and now he doesn't. And, I go in saying that I was really looking forward to the card, the Colonnade, and it sucks that he's like, I don't even care about the Colonnade, but I just don't want to make this trade with you. So I kind of think that there's more going on, and I kind of approach him about that. I later tell him that I appreciate his politeness and communication in the matter. However, I find his decision to cancel the trade disconcerting and unpleasant, and I let him know that this doesn't make him an unsafe trader, but I want him to be aware that I am thinking about making a video detailing about this frustrating situation. I also want him to know that I have zero reason from this point on to conduct any future trades, based on the simple fact that if you canceled once before, you'll probably just do it again, and it would just be a waste of my time. Alright, so he gives me a response that he goes into saying a bunch of his friends and local game stores use TCG for their pricing. And when I said that I wanted to use SCG, I was aware that he was aware that the prices are usually higher, but that wasn't an issue for me. The Kiki Jiki is about the same on every big store, normally 23 for near mint, but the Colonnade is usually 22, 23 on other sites. So now he's telling me that he actually didn't feel like he was getting full value out of his colonnade, but didn't want to say anything. That is my fault, is what he says. He should have said something. He just wasn't comfortable with sending $6 on top of the already fair trade if using TCG or Channel Fireball. And then he appreciates me giving him some extra time on the trade. And then he says this. He says, well, I understand the trade was pretty much agreed upon, but I was very uncomfortable with the trade. He goes ahead and he asks 2 other large YouTube channels what they would do in his situation. He didn't use names, and they both said that if he was uncomfortable with a trade, that he shouldn't do it. He spent the entire day thinking about it and decided not to go through with the trade. He says, if I want, I can make a video. He won't stop me. But he feels that a trade should have both sides coming out happy and satisfied in the end. And I agree. I say, I don't understand why you couldn't just explain the whole value issue to me in the first place instead of canceling out on the trade. Of course, I want the other trade party to be happy, which from your previous messages seemed to be the case. And I've always been flexible with those I trade with. If you would have just approached me with a message telling me that you feel like you're getting the short end of the stick and that you would like to try to renegotiate by excluding the cash, I more than likely would have just said that was fine because I was excited to get a colonnade and just trade off my extra kiki-jiki. I tell him that I'm frustrated by the trade canceling, and I actually went ahead and I just bought my own colonnade on TCG for $16.25 free shipping. So pretty much better than what we were even going for. This brings me to my next point, which is a pretty important one. It's a good example, I feel, because he says in quotes, since the cards technically didn't leave possession, and I guess I should go back and read that where it says oh my gosh, where is this? Right here. Alright, so he says, the cards technically never left either of our possessions, so I had hoped this wouldn't cause an inconvenience, but it did. So, I wanted to address this. Just because the cards don't technically leave possession is absolutely irrelevant in my eyes. That's like you bidding in an auction on eBay and being the winner. Then later, when it's time to pay up, feeling like you maybe spent too much or unhappy, and all of a sudden, maybe you saw a better deal elsewhere. And because you haven't paid for the auction yet, you should be able to just back out of a binding contract with no foul against you because you, quotes, technically haven't paid. I can assure you, this is not how eBay works. Of course, they have a ton of legal parameters set up to enforce this, whereas here on YouTube, there are none. But that should not take away from viewing an agreed-upon trade by both parties through private messaging as a written, binding contract of trade that should be carried out. That's my opinion on this. I know that a lot of other people share my opinion, and we're going to address that later on, I think. And then we further go into discuss how, I tell him that he spoke to 2 large YouTubers about the situation. They told him to back out if he was uncomfortable, and I would love to know who they are. And this is where then I start to get curious as to what is the actual community standpoint on Takesie Backsies. It was just a $25 value trade, so I wasn't going to make a big deal out of it. But now I'm curious because I've seen one other YouTube trader, I think, incorporate a grace period. And, I wanted to get a general consensus as to, how we as an MTG trade community should view the negotiation process. I feel like my viewpoint is valid, but, I want to get your guys' opinion weighed upon and see if maybe, we can figure this out and avoid any wasted time that anyone might encounter in the future by hopefully coming up with a standardized kind of set of expectations for trading. So his last reply to me off of that message there is, at first he was happy since he wanted to find the value in other cards in my binder rather than the $6 cash. But then he goes and says this, but when you mentioned the money, I didn't think it was that big of a deal at the time, but then I checked prices on other websites, and I felt like I was losing out. I wanted to back out, but knew this situation would happen, so I had pretty much decided to accept my loss. But then I messaged two other YouTubers who I don't want to name to protect their privacy, and they said if I wasn't comfortable with the trade, then I shouldn't do the trade. And I want to stop right there and just quickly explain that I've actually already been in contact with both the other large YouTubers, and they have went on to explain to me that they actually did not have all the information from RDS Redemption. They were not under the impression that addresses had already been exchanged. And they felt that once the addresses had been exchanged and the info, for shipping went back and forth between each other, that right there locks the trade up, ironclad. The cards should be exchanged. They did not have that info when they told him that he should, if he was uncomfortable, then just to back out. He goes on to saying, one last thing, and I'll get into it in my response, but you guys just heard me read. It says when you mentioned the money, clearly he was the one that gave me the option to accept cash as opposed to the Helix. And he goes on to say your point with eBay is valid, like you said, but there weren't any legally binding parameters for YouTube trading. So if there were, there's obviously nothing he could do about it. But since there's nothing legally binding, then this should be acceptable, which I have a problem with. If you do make this video regarding the opinions of the community, could I ask that you don't demonize me and just present the facts? I'm really trying to just present the facts, and I've already went ahead and I gave you guys a disclaimer. He understands there's anger and that he is in the wrong, but I don't want his inbox, filling up with hate and negativity over trade, which he wasn't comfortable with. So like I said, guys, this isn't a bashing video. He knows he's wrong. We know he's wrong. We're going to get over it and hopefully learn from this and make a better usage for our, or a better opportunity for our community to conduct trades in the future. And then he goes on to say some other stuff there. So my last reply to him here, before I actually start talking on Facebook with the other large YouTubers, is I would like to remind you that you were the one to present the cash offer. I was perfectly content finding other cards to fill the small value, i.e. the Lightning Helix or Avalanche Riders. And I quote him on what he actually said in the previous. I tell him that you gave me the option for cash, which made me think that you were fine with this being part of the trade as opposed to cards. Of course I would rather have the cash over cards. Do not present an offer if you don't actually want to do it. That's just plain dumb and a waste of both our time. When we first started negotiating a week ago, Star City had the prices, what I've already told you, and adding 6 cash made it equal value, although maybe slightly in my favor since cash weighs greater than card value. But nonetheless, it was a relatively fair trade according to SCG. I have no idea what Channel Fireball's prices were a week ago, and he had ample time to cross-reference other websites and eBay, and if he felt that his Colonnade price was out of the question, which in reality it's not, Channel Fireball is, I feel, currently overpriced right now at 28. That's, of course, pending a huge tournament performance spike. Since I just picked up my Colonnade for 1625, so I honestly don't believe that adding the 6 was really, that out of the question for a fair trade. I can respect you wanting to protect the privacy of the two YouTubers that you spoke with. I can also assume that you did, in fact, present all the information to them in regards to the trade. And obviously I say this because there was a little doubt that maybe he was making his argument favor him and be one-sided to get the approval of two other large YouTubers. And if he did present all the information, fantastic, and that's what I'd like to talk to those YouTubers about. I'm fairly certain that I know what most of the large YouTubers would say in this situation. In light of this, I just took a moment away from typing this message to make a group post on our big MTG YouTube channel Facebook page. And then this is when I paused writing this. I went to YouTube or Facebook, typed up my situation, got a bunch of feedback from a lot of the other large users. And then I tell them, hopefully the large YouTubers that you spoke with are members in our big YouTuber Facebook group and will simply come forward to discuss this matter with me, because I really wanted to hear their opinions and viewpoints on this. And they, in fact, did come forward. both of them, and we discussed it. And once they got my side of the story, they ended up siding with me. As for the video, I will do my best to present the facts of the situation and request you don't get the hate mail. Again, this is a learning point, for everyone. It's not so much anger as it was frustration for me, and I'm really looking for a widely accepted standard on how YouTube trades should be conducted, proper etiquette and governing rules and policies, and how the YouTubers should view the negotiating process. Because it's, I tell them, there's no way of legally enforcing a trade to go through, but we're also not on the playground of elementary school where Takesie Backsie should be an acceptable thing. Which is why I'm curious to see how most of the community weighs in, if they support the idea of a binding written contract upon agreement and exchange of addresses and info, or if the grace period trade or tactic to determine if a trade proceeds is what they favor. So that's it. That's the situation that I had recently here in a failed trade attempt with RDSRedemption. I'm really interested from the community what your opinion is on Takesie Backsies. So please leave a comment, weigh in, discuss this. I would love to hear what you guys think. If you want, take to Facebook. Otherwise, I think that pretty much wraps everything up. Again, I'm not looking to bash RDS. You guys can, feel free to use this info to, however you see fit, if you want to conduct any future trades with him or not. But that is the situation. I really do appreciate you guys that took the time to watch. I guess this is approaching 22 minutes now. I still went long. But there was a lot that I did want to cover. And guys, look forward from a lot of the other large YouTubers to, hopefully produce a future video that will hopefully clarify and sum up a lot of the expected etiquette for YouTube trades. So thanks again for watching, guys, and have a nice day.